The first base market has been on the move. We're going to get into the latest player changing locations, an old friend alert, and some minor league gold gloves on today's episode of Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jeff Ellis. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever you get podcasts. If you're curious, yes, co-host number 3 is here today, taking part. His qualifications, he's never written a baseball article. He has watched part of a baseball game, never a full game. And that's all I'm going to say about for who I am today.
I cannot hold up to that one.
You have watched a full baseball game in your life. You have him.
I have watched a few. Yes, I've probably watched too many in the eyes of some people. Yeah, co-hosting with you and Guardians Baseball Insider, managing editor, Prospects Live, News Herald, Morning Journal, all that good stuff. I don't get out much, just like him. My hobbies are writing. His hobbies are not writing, but we both get out probably the same.
Yeah, no, so let's just dive into first base. Jose Abreu. I know people early in free agency were telling me he's going to get like 2 years, 12. I think I said like 2 years, 30. No, 3 years, 60. Few points on this. That is the second first baseman off the market after Rizzo signing. I mean, this first base market is sparse already, is a situation. You got Bell, who's a DH left. Not Chris Drury, that's the hockey player. Brandon Drury might be your number 2 first baseman, and he's. I thought you could get. You're not getting him under 10 mil now. It looks like Trey Mancini, who's got declining data into his 30s, but still a solid player. Will Myers might be a top 5 target. This is going to get expensive. I'm not shocked by the cost. I'm a little surprised by the fact that a team with no GM signed him today. But, there's a lot to be said. Before I give any deeper analysis, why don't you take first swing?
I think I was more surprised at the length of the contract than anything. My initial thought was 2 years, $50 million for Abreu. So he gets less annual average value at $20 million a year instead of 25. But he gets 1 more year than I thought he would. And I wonder if that comes down to Houston adding the extra year to help swing him to come to Houston. And part of that maybe comes down to the fact that they don't have a GM. Like, do you think that James Click is making that deal? I'm very skeptical. I think James Click would have done 2 years, $50 million. That's my own, personal bias, but I think Click might have been interested at that price, but I don't think he would have gotten the 3rd year, but who knows?
Feels like it would have been feels like it would have been the 3rd year as an option year, worth like $5 million or something like that. But yeah, it's because it wasn't Click who re-signed Gurriel either, and you can look at the recent case with Gurriel, where like 2 of the last 3 years he was a below-average bat. Abreu's power went away. He struggled with 4-seamers this year, a little bit more in the past, but he had one of his best offensive seasons because his on-base percentage skyrocketed. I think the best of his career. Is he, the question is, did he revamp the swing and power's going to potentially return? Or is this a player who's 36 years of age, we should point out, who revamped his swing because he's getting older and can't catch up to things? I think he'll be good next year. There are not a lot of players who continue to be really worth $20 million at age 38 and 39. Honestly, outside of Nelson Cruz, who you got? Like, who else follows a pathway to success that they're hoping he goes for?
I mean, Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, but those guys are pitchers, so a very different story. Yeah, his exit velocity against fastballs is starting to come down quite a bit, and like you said, 4-seam hasn't been good. I mean, he hit less home runs this year than he did in the pandemic shortened season. Now you can throw a lot of that out anyway, but still, that's pretty alarming. However you want to look at that, I would say. I still think he's going to be a valuable offensive player for them. Is he worth $20 million? I would probably guess he will not be worth $20 million. But is he worth $20 million to the Astros, who just upgraded at first base and made their lineup a lot scarier? I don't know. Like, would he have been worth $20 million to the Guardians? Possibly, because they really, could have used his bat in the lineup. I think the value comes from what he does for your team versus the output overall. Like, in a vacuum, he's not going to be worth that contract at the end of the day, but he might be to a certain team depending on what your needs are, I suppose, if that makes sense. Like, the value comes to I think the value is more important to what he provides to your team versus what he does in a vacuum overall.
I mean, looking at that Houston team, going from, JJ Matichevich, who has been, a kind of a success story for them. It took him a while to get to the big leagues. He debuted this year at age 26, but I mean, he has 66 runs created plus, and that's likely who would play first if they didn't get an outside option. They had to get someone. They had nothing internally. Gurriel, as I pointed out last year, he was worth negative WAR because he's such a bad defender. 85 runs created plus, and he's 38 last year. He'll be 39 in June. You can't bring him back. They made that trade for Mancini, but then Mancini wasn't even good enough to really play a ton all time. He was not a everyday player for them. So this was a massive need with no internal option. It's a smart move. Again, I think he could be worth $20 million this year. We'll have to see in year 2 or 3, but I think there is a chance for regret. But if you're trying to repeat, that's what you got to do. And the other thing I'll say, though, about Verlander and Scherzer is, much like some of the other great pitchers, those two guys feel like not just like physical freaks of nature, but guys who put in the time with their bodies. And I don't mean that in some kind of any other way, in the fact like those guys are in monster shape all the time. I don't think they take any time off. Their off season, it reminds me as a kid when I'd sit there and hear about Nolan Ryan, and it's like I feel like a generation of pitchers who, I think I'm like a year or two older than Verlander. So we grew up around the same time, and we probably both sat there and read the stories about like what Nolan Ryan did every year to get in shape and stay in shape. Difference was I read it and went, oh, that's interesting. And then, Verlander read it and did it. Well, on top of the fact, physical tools being bigger, everything else. But I feel like for a certain generation of people, and I'm part of that generation, you heard about these guys. And if you had that ability, you found ways to go out and put together. My other question with Abreu is he's never been a top shape guy. He's been a fantastic hitter. And I think you can tell by the change of the swing, he puts the time in to the mental part of the game, into the studying the books. But I always wonder, again, if you want to look glass half full, Nelson Cruz was never a picture of physical shape either. So I think they're hoping it's Nelson Cruz. And on the downside, they're afraid it's another Gurriel. And who knows? We have no way of guessing. Age is a weird thing, especially late in your 30s. Most players can't keep it together, but you can't really predict who's going to be the one. But if you are going to predict the one, Tomey played into his 40s, right? And that's maybe a similar pathway in terms of like walking more, getting on base. As Jim Tomey's power went away, he wasn't necessarily an everyday guy anymore, but he still had some productive seasons. And maybe that's the comp. Maybe it's taking more of a Jim Tomey aging curve for him. So this is your chance to talk about Jim Toby, and I'll mute myself.
Yeah, no, Toby was still good towards the end of his career. He had some power. Just his was more the back injury at the end of the year. And I don't know, you can't predict injuries until you've had one. And Abreu's been healthy so far, and Father Time catches everybody. But this was his best batting average year besides 2020. This is tied for the second highest batting average, and average on balls in play, right around normal for him for the most part. He's fluctuated. It was a little bit higher this year.
Yeah, it's like 30 points above his career average.
Yeah, he said he had a 350 season before. That was 2020. He's hovering around 330, 320 a couple times. So he's within range. Will it drop a little bit? Maybe. I don't know. I often think on contracts like this too, is that the same as the Edwin deal. So I said that this is the exact same as the Edwin Encarnacion deal. Cleveland gave him. He was 34. Abreu was 35. So Cleveland was getting Edwin's 34, 35, 36 seasons, and the Astros are getting Abreu's 36, 37, 38 seasons. So it's close, but when Cleveland signed Edwin, I said, okay, they're buying 3 years to get 2 good ones. Like I thought they're hoping for 2 good ones. They're giving him the third to get the front half. And that's kind of what you're probably doing with Abreu too, is you're saying, this is why I think the 3 years, I mean, supposedly Cleveland offered him 3 years as well, probably obviously less money. That's why he went to Houston. But the 3 years was what you had to be in on him at, because that's how you're going to hopefully get 2 above average years offensively. And it's going to, whatever happens, the third year happens, but you're giving him that third year because you're trying to get him there for the first 2 years, and whatever happens the third year is what happens. So that's kind of how I look at some of those contracts sometimes, is you're not worried about what he does in year, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're hoping for the first couple of years of that contract, you're getting what you pay for. And that's just part of the bargain of free agency, which is why free agency is often very fool's gold and a very tricky game to play sometimes. And
let's be honest, like year 3 of that deal, when you look at Altuve's age and everyone else's age, if they can bring back Verlander, if he's like, that's a rebuild time. Like that's not going to be a time to do anything.
Their system is light. So
yeah. And we had it wrong. Just a side note. I was reading up, he got 19.5 million. So he's only getting 58.5 million. So his family will starve. With that loss of the extra 1.5 million that we were adding in.
He'll join the Charles Sprewell. That's fine.
Yes. Yeah, how he's going to feed his kids. Speaking of feeding, let's take a commercial break at this point. Then we got to come back and do an old friend alert. And we're going to talk about some minor league high level gold gloves, something I completely missed on that Justin alerted me to. And but first we got to pay those bills. We got to eat, and we have to have a quick note from one of the fantastic sponsors that helps brings this content to you, and those are our good friends over at BetOnline. Listen, we've said it once, we've said it a million times. BetOnline has you covered. Why do they have you covered? Well, it's not just betting lines, though they have fantastic betting lines. They have podcasts, they have news, and it's not just your traditional sports, football, basketball, soccer right now. They do esports. And if you love podcasts, they got you there. It's the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Let's head over to BetOnline right now. As we're doing this ad read, let's check out and see, have any lines moved with what has gone on? Now, almost all the MLB betting is based off of free agency. But if I come over here, my co-host apparently has my former co-host has information on Houston is now at plus 600, which would make them second to the Dodgers at plus 575. That is their updated one as of today. I believe that is an increase from what I saw earlier. Houston is not the favorite, but they are close. And there is a gap between that next group. So Houston helped increase their line today. Go to BetOnline today. Our good friends, get in the game. Don't sit on the sidelines. Check out BetOnline. They got you covered.
Not surprised. That sounds about right. I expect a Houston and Dodgers World Series. That's what I had this year happening with Houston and Dodgers, and I expect that to happen next year. So, real quick before we move on to the Gold Glove thing, I want to get into. I know I'm going to spring this on you. We talked about a little bit off the air, but you spring a lot of stuff on me, so I'll spring it on you. But
go ahead.
With the Abreu contract, you briefly touched on what does that mean for Drury? What does that mean for Bell? What does it mean for other guys? Cleveland reportedly offered Abreu 3 years. So, what does this say about their interest on the free agent market at first base and right-handed hitters, and what they're going to do next? Like, what does this say to you about what's next for them in terms of trying to improve their lineup, specifically at this spot with who's left?
I wouldn't be shocked if they at least try for Josh Bell, because I think what we have seen with them, see, you didn't get me. I got a response.
I was hoping you would.
It's like you go back to last year, like Matt Olson. I think some people were surprised, and I'll stand by it. They had a top 3 offer on Olson. Like they thought they had a very good chance at Olson. I've had some people connected to the organization tell me they thought that they had it. They thought that one was going to be theirs. When it is a player that raises their ceiling, I think they'll go for it. I don't think they're going to go out and pay for Drury, because I don't know if he raises the ceiling enough. to pay $10 million. I don't think he does enough of that. Does Jose Abreu raise the ceiling enough? Yeah. Like, for all of my concerns, all of my statements in the last section, again, I think next year he probably will be worth about $20 million. The year after that, you're hoping for him to be worth about 12 to 14. And in the last year, you're willing to settle for him being worth 9 to 8 as a platoon guy. But he all of a sudden becomes your 3-hitter, your 4-hitter. He elevates that entire lineup by pushing some of those very talented players. Well, you have Andres Jimenez hitting like 9th by the time you add him in with the way things shaped up, right? But they're going to balance the lineup when you get that player in there. And Josh Bell is the other one. Like Josh Bell, I think back to when he got traded to the Nationals, and I had people telling me that Jesus Aguilar was a better player because Josh Bell had some struggles at that point. And yes, if you go get Josh Bell, he's you don't want him in the field ever. But he's a switch hitter. He is such a strong hitter. I know his average exit velocity isn't great, but he walks. His K percentage isn't high. He fits the Guardians' approach as a hitter. He's a super smart kid. I remember writing about him in his draft year. I think both of his parents are college professors. He was ticketed to Stanford, got a huge bonus to not go. He's a very, very impressive kid from a very, very impressive family. And he's overcome it. Man, I almost said adversity. That's the word. I almost said overcame advisory. Adverse. He's had his ups and downs, but again, it's the mix of fantastic physical tools and, that intelligence. He is 30. He is kind of on the decline. You do worry about with some of the bigger bodied infielders, but again, the fact that he has such a good K and walk ratio, that makes me sorry, I was half afraid my internet was going to drop there. That makes me convinced that I'm not as afraid of him falling apart as I might be someone else. So if they are going to chase a first baseman, and you probably need to make it, the one downside is, would they be willing to do a 5-year deal? Because I feel like it's going to take something like that to get there. Like, he's going to want more than 3. And I feel like in some ways the Guardians are kind of locked into that 3 range. But my feeling is it's for first base, Bell or bust. The only other first baseman, and I don't know if we'll have time to get to him today, that maybe fits a little further down the line is Joey Gallo. But we'll get into that discussion maybe today, maybe later in the week. I have some data to back up that assessment. But I think at the end of the day, it's Bell or bust, and likely bust. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I have to agree. My overall thought after the Abreu contract, and you brought this up with Carlos Santana, saying, okay, Carlos Santana getting almost 8 it was almost 8, right? It was like 7+.
Yeah. No, it's 6.75, right?
Okay,
almost
so 6+. Okay. But you said from the beginning when Santana got that contract that it raises the bar on first baseman, that the price is going to be up, and you were correct, because obviously, I don't know. I think we can all agree Abreu, pricing-wise, probably panned out how I thought. It just became an extra year, maybe. Guaranteeing the 3rd year is probably what surprised most people. It would be my guess. So yeah, with Bell, I anything under 4 years would be stunning. I'm thinking like 460 is where he's going to come in at, maybe even.
Oh, really?
465.
I was thinking like 480 plus, like 490. Maybe.
Okay. Yeah, you might be right. It might be 480. You're right. That could be true.
Because it's just, I mean, you look at him, he's got a career walk rate of 12% and a career K rate of 18%. Like, I know the homers haven't been there as much. It's, that's the one thing. He had that 37 home run year and then, 17. So maybe, no, I'm going to bring it down because the power isn't there and the defense isn't there. So you're probably
right.
I'm betting it's
65 to 70.
Yeah, 65 to 70. I think that's fair. I got in my head, but he only had that 130 home run year. So I have to reset mine. And then, if you're getting him, you don't want to let him play anything defensively. You just maybe against lefties, and it's 20% of the time. If you don't have another choice, you have Bell play first and Naylor on the bench, because you really don't want Naylor playing against lefties. But you want to. But then again, are they willing to go get another Franmil where it's DH or nothing? Like, they work so hard and it made such a big deal about flexibility. I don't know. I mean, I would be happy if it happened.
Yeah, I don't think Bell is that bad defensively. I mean, I know the outs above average says he's not great. Let me see if I can find
I
the.
believe he was 17th with an arm strength of 1. He had the weakest arm in baseball.
Yeah, I
his
mean, who cares
position.
about that at first base, right?
I know it doesn't really matter, but the 17 at outs above average. I just think of all the Owen Miller plays, and then remember Miller wasn't graded badly there.
Yeah, oddly enough, Owen Miller grades out really well statistically, defensively. Who would have seen that coming? Yeah,
But,
-4 outs above average.
Yeah, and Naylor's not bad defensively. You just don't want him hitting against lefties.
Yeah, that's really what we're talking about here. Is that this is what we talked about off air. Was what is the price to upgrade? You're essentially upgrading your lineup against left-handed pitching, and you said that's like 20% of your lineup is against left-handed pitching. So what is the cost out there to go out and bring in somebody who affects 20% of your lineup, and what are you willing to pay for that? Now, Josh Bell is different because he is a switch hitter, so he can help you against lefties and righties. You don't have to worry about that with him. But the spot you're basically taking up here is you're talking about trying to upgrade your DH/first base spot, and you can DH Gonzalez if you need to, or Brennan, whoever. Not that Brennan should be DHing, but that was a whole different story in the postseason. But they're likely to platoon Brennan if he's on the roster. So Bell essentially takes up the DH spot, and you just platoon out there. But you're upgrading one spot in your lineup just so you don't have to play Naylor against left-handed pitching. That's kind of what you're doing here. So you have to weigh the cost of that. I agree with you. It's definitely Bell or bust here. I think the price has gone up on Drury. Now, doesn't make sense to me to bring in Drury. I mean, I know the versatility is nice, but I think when Cleveland swings big for somebody, and I know people are going to say, well, they haven't swung big for anybody. I mean, there's Edwin, and then there's all the guys that they were reportedly in on, like Olsen and Abreu and all that stuff. People say, well, they were supposedly in on, but they're in on them for a reason at their price. But there's a reason you can't just say, oh, well, if they were in on Abreu, they should be in on, everybody else or whatever. That doesn't translate. I think you have to be in on the right guy, the right fit. And I think Bell still fits that. It's just going to come down to price. Oddly enough, I will say this is not always a great way to look at it, but Fangraphs median crowdsource has Bell getting 3 years, $39 million. That seems like an underpay to me. And Ben Clemens, who did their free agent rankings this year, he gave him 2 years, $18 million. I don't see that happening. The average crowdsource was 3 years at $43 million. I don't know. I would probably tack a 4th year onto that, just knowing how this market is going right now. Maybe they didn't see what the market was before they put this together, so that's probably why. But what do you think? 4 years at $15 million? What is that? I'm bad at math.
That would be 60, but I think he gets more than I'm thinking like at least 18. So I mean that's what 12 more, so 72. 4 years, $72 million.
So does Bell raise the lineup the way Abreu does? Being a little bit younger.
I mean, it's essentially the same profile right now, right? Like unless you believe that Abreu's power is coming back, they're both, on base guys. Like that was their skill set. Though it is, I'll say with these two guys, I was kind of curious. I just went and looked at OPSs against left-handed pitching. Abreu was 26th on the list, just 2 spots ahead of Sean Murphy. For everyone who complains that Murphy isn't good enough bat. 2 former Indians on this list. And I say Indians because they were Indians when they were here. Santander and Diaz were in the top 20. For as much as Ravi Grossman was an out-and-out disaster, he had 150 plate appearances with a 157 OPS against lefties. There's trying to find ways to. I feel like at the end of the day, JD Martinez, everyone talks about, he was 8th, but I think he gets pricey. It's going to be, and Brandon Drury is.
I have no interest in JD Martinez at all.
None. Yeah, I don't either. Brandon Drury was 17th, 1 spot ahead of Santander. Kyle Farmer, interestingly enough, who just went to the Twins, was 21st. Like, there might be, a lower division way to do this. And I mean, Bell was 53rd, 1 spot better than Ahmed Rosario in terms of against left-handed hitters or left-handed pitchers. It's not a. It's interesting to look at the data. Carlos Santana was 43rd. Again, I think that was part of his value. And then I think someone you and I would both love to see them acquire if they can't get Sean Murphy, Jonah Heim at 38. So, yeah, I think, could they get Austin Slater out of San Francisco? Do they need another outfielder? They have to figure out exactly what the calculus is. But I just think, I don't know. I think it's going to be hard for them to get Bell, and it feels like we should maybe take our break and come back at this point. But do you have any closing thoughts?
No, we'll get to the Gold Glove in the next segment.
Yeah, we got Gold Glove and Maile. But we're going to take a quick break. End of the story. Okay, let's put a bow on it, as we're supposed to do. Abreu would have been an upgrade. I can't blame him for likely taking more money. We don't know what Cleveland's offer was. I guarantee you it was not this. Bell would be an upgrade, but I can't see them giving him the contract he would want. I mean, if he's going to do 3 years, $39 million, sign tomorrow. Like, that should be done. It should be done and in the books. Like, he should be in Cleveland.
It's getting higher.
Yeah. And, the secondary market, Drury is probably too expensive, but maybe there's a way, like I said, to go look at who just, find a first base version of Luplow. Like, there's guys who can do similar things if you're looking for that help. But then that does mean you're pushing probably someone like Brennan to the minors. But we'll come back, take a break. We got some Gold Gloves and some old friend alerts all on today's episode. And we're back. So why don't you explain? You told me about this. What exactly this Gold Glove means? It's not just for A-ball, right?
Yeah. So every year, obviously, the Rawlings also does a minor league version of the Gold Gloves, but they don't do it by level. It's by the entire minor league system. Also voted on by coaches and managers. And last year, Jose Tano won one at shortstop for Cleveland. This year, it was Joe Naranjo at first base. So Joe Naranjo was voted on by coaches and managers and ended up getting the Gold Glove at first base throughout all of minor league baseball. So that matches up. Joe has always been considered a good glove, defensive first baseman. Great picking the ball out of the dirt, has range, good arm, athletic around the bag. So that all adds up quite a bit. He is quite the athletic defender. Joe Naranjo would not be a first baseman if he did not throw left-handed. He would be playing probably second. I don't know about third, but probably would be like a middle infielder if he was not a left-handed thrower. That is probably part of why the profile is a little bit weird offensively. But yeah, good glove at first base. It plays and definitely tracks with this coaches and managers voting. So congratulations to Joe Naranjo. Good kid too.
Yeah. Always great to see. And, like anything that helps raise a player's profile and good on him. We also wanted to mention, it's apparently if you want to get signed right now in free agent, be a former Guardian. Because 3 out of 4, Luke Maile, a little bit of a surprise for me. He got, I closed my window. He got over $1 million. Like he got like 1.15 million, 1.75 million with 25K and performance bonuses. His arbitration projection, I believe, was 1.2. No, it was 1.3. So he got almost what he was projected to get in arbitration. He goes home. He's from Northern Kentucky. He went to school at Kentucky before being drafted by the Rays. So he gets to go home to Cincinnati and be a lot closer to his family. Not that he's that far away in Cleveland, but it's got to be nice to do that, to feel wanted. There were some rumors that that Cincinnati had some interest in a Tucker Barnhart reunion. I mean, Maile showed more than Barnhart last year. I think that's a fine choice. It is a little bit weird to go spend $1 million plus on your backup catcher when you are a team that is that bad. I know you want some veteran presence, but hey, I'm not going to fault anyone. He's a solid backup. Last year was his first real extended opportunity. I think he's at a career high for appearances in games. So yeah, good for Maile. Seems like a good guy, and he gets to go home and he gets to make a decent amount of bank, and everyone wins.
Yeah, I think he'll be good for the Reds. They have got a young pitching staff. They want to get younger, and he'll be able to help out Tyler Stevenson as well. If Tyler Stevenson could stay healthy, my fantasy team sure hopes that he can. I've always been a big believer in Tyler Stevenson, but he might be able to help him a little bit grow defensively and help that pitching staff. And maybe he plays against left-handed pitching. I don't know. I don't think they need a platoon for Tyler Stevenson, but he hit left-handed pitching fairly well last year. So they're there is that. Maybe there's some intangible value there. I'm very surprised to see that Maile got a job for Austin Hedges, but I guess that means Hedges is going to get more money than Maile. So there you go.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how that plays out as well. I mean, that more or less wraps up the show for today. There's the joy of the off season, right? Some days it's bursting and we have plenty of fun stuff. Like I said, we'll get to some of those names like Gallo and the rest. We will talk more Rule 5 in the upcoming days, as that draft is next week. And of course, if anything breaks, we will have you covered. Any closing thoughts before we put this one to bed?
No, I will save my hot takes tomorrow for the Cody Bellinger / Joey Gallo stuff.
Yeah, hot take: Cody Bellinger is not very good at baseball.
Yeah,
his hype. No player has a bigger hype to value right now than Cody Bellinger.
Yeah,
that's.
I'll just say I've already said it on this show anyway. It's just I've seen people. I'll spoil the take today because we still have some time to play with, to be honest. But I've already said it. People out there are saying Bellinger or Gallo, and you, I don't know. I'll let you make your argument about Gallo tomorrow. People are saying, oh, they're better than what you're going to get from Maile or Gonzalez or whatever. And I think someone's argument was, well, they're past first round picks and past all-stars. And I'm like, oh, there it is. There is I know that name, so he must be a good free agent. He must be a good player if I know that name. That's what people are doing out there. They're saying, I know this guy's name, so therefore he must be better than anything we have on our team. So gotta love those.
And I'm not gonna ruin the Gallo stuff. I got some reasons to back it up. I'm not saying it's perfect, but Bellinger, it's 2 years out. So, and again, like, he would be an upgrade for the Marlins, for the Rockies. There are teams where he legitimately could make sense because he's a solid defender. But last year he was not as good of a defender as Miles Straw, and he was barely a better hitter. So it's probably where I can steal my statement. But yeah, thank you all for listening, rating and reviewing, downloading daily, YouTube subscription. Let's hit that before we go. I believe we're at 926. We are, under 100 away. If you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Yeah, 926 is where we are. That is 74 more. Go start making burners for us. I'm kidding, but maybe not. Hey, whatever you want to do to help us out, we appreciate it. We want a right-handed bat for the lineup and 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So please jump in and help us out.
Let me just say, Google already has all your data anyway. Just give them the rest and make a burner account. It's fine.
Yeah, I have a work account. My work account is subscribed, as is my personal account. I'm not going to lie. I'm not too proud. But thank you all who have already. And thank you to everyone who's also retweeted, pushed, and helped with that. Much appreciated. Yeah. Thank you all for everything you do. Thank you for everything you do. And for the parents out there, you know what I'm referencing. But we'll end there. Go Guardians, go.